Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of ESG Decoded. My name is Yvonne Harris, and you're probably used to seeing me on the screen and knowing which topic is coming up as it relates to ESG. And we're focused today, yes, on the S, the social of ESG. And supporting us in today's focus, looking forward to a lot of vibrant conversation. We have two leaders from Easter Seals, specifically Easter Seals of Greater Houston, that have joined our podcast today. We have Kelly Klein, who's our Development and Communications Director for Easter Seals of Greater Houston, and Cristen Reat, who is Director of their program called Bridging Apps. So Kelly and Cristen, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks so much.
And for those in our audience who may not be familiar with Easter Seals or would welcome a little bit more knowledge about the organization, on a national perspective, Easter Seals is the leading nonprofit provider of services for individuals with autism, developmental disabilities, physical disabilities, and other special needs. They also work with service members, veterans, and their families. For over 75 years, Easter Seals of Greater Houston has been offering help, hope, and answers to people of all ages with disabilities and their families. So through therapy, training, education, and support services, Easter Seals creates life-changing solutions so that people with disabilities can live, learn, work, and play, and I would even add thrive in our community. So first, let me pause and say, Kelly and Cristen, thank you for the heart work that you pump into our community, not only as individuals, but as a collective, and I really appreciate all that you do.
Thank you.
So, Kelly, let's start with you. Can you introduce yourself to our audience and talk a little bit more about your career path to Easter Seals and then your role as Development Director?
Absolutely. I'm Kelly Klein. I'm the Development Director at Easter Seals Greater Houston. I have been at Easter Seals for over 28 years, lifetime basically. And it's been really an amazing ride to watch where we were when I started and where we have come from. You know, we started out as a school for children before the ADA was passed. And when I got there, we had 3 programs, and now we're at 13, including the veterans and military service programs. And it really is just an amazing journey that we've come on, because we have really learned so much over the years about having children and adults with disabilities that support their family needs and the veterans and military population. And, you know, with Cristen and her Bridging Apps program and the smart technology that can help it. Truly amazing.
Thank you. And Kelly referenced the passage of ADA, and that is the Americans with Disabilities Act. So I just wanted to clarify that, Kelly, for our audience. Thank you. Cristen.
Thanks so much. So I am a co-founder of Bridging Apps, and the whole reason Bridging Apps exists is because my younger son was born with Down syndrome and other disabilities. He also has a diagnosis of autism and a visual impairment. And so all of my efforts when he was quite young was to help him succeed and thrive, as you mentioned. And part of that journey was the year that the iPad came out. Which was 2010. And so that is the origin story of Bridging Apps. Is it started in a therapy clinic with parents and therapists working together, trying to figure out which new of these new amazing applications on our smartphones and tablets were helpful. So our journey started there, and we became part of Easter Seals, found a forever home, and have just watched the program grow, expand. We do all sorts of things, but our heart is really focusing on supporting individuals with disabilities as well as their caregivers, families, and that is everyone from young children all the way up. I think our oldest client right now is 92. So it is hard work for sure.
So from 2 months to 2 years to 92. Your service knows no age boundaries. And Cristen, I love how your love for your son has really guided your career purpose too. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you. Yes, I had a different path in life, and everything changed when he was born. So it's really a privilege.
Yeah. Oftentimes children are brought to kind of serve as the bumpers in the pinball machine, and they just get us back on our purpose that was intended. So thank you again for sharing that. Well, as we are about to dive into this conversation around not only the services of Easter Seals, but more importantly, support of those with disabilities in our community, and then tied to our audience for this podcast and our organizations, I just want to lead in with common language around this topic, and just want to check in with you in terms of the use of the term disabilities or different abilities. What is generally accepted as we talk about this community?
I think we as an agency focus really on people first. The descriptor, I'm not going to describe either one of you without leading with something else first. I mean, Yvonne is, right. And I think that people shy away because the PC world gets in the middle of it and starts creating different terminology, most of which we have found the disability community really doesn't like. They are proud. We just celebrated Disability Pride Month. They're proud of their disability. It makes them unique. It makes them an individual. So I think as long as you're cognizant of that and you are putting people first. Now, granted, you're not using any of the old terminology slang. We really don't, we don't want to hear those kind of words, but people first and disability is completely fine. And Kristen can probably talk about it more as the mother of a child, what she has, been through with her son.
Right. So this is a topic that's often quite interesting, but also stressful for people because you don't want to say the wrong thing, and so many people tiptoe around it. But as I just want to reiterate what Kelly said, is often I myself don't have a disability, so I'm not speaking on behalf of people with disabilities. I'm speaking on behalf of being a professional and working with people with disabilities, also being the mother of a child with disabilities. So I have no problem with the word disability, and that really is often what it is. 1 in 4 Americans has some sort of disability. That's 25% of the population. And so oftentimes I find that the word disability, people just think, oh, that really has nothing to do with me. But it has something to do with us because we're all aging and we all know someone with a disability, whether we know they have a disability or not. There are lots of people with what are called hidden disabilities or invisible disabilities, such as ADHD. I think as a parent, many parents self-describe as special needs parents. So oftentimes that really just is a shortcut for within the special needs community or the parent community of someone with a disability. So you might hear that term also if you're talking about parents or caregivers is, I am a special need mom. I'm a special need parent. But really the word disability is just a description, and it's only one aspect of someone's someone's humanity, right? I'm a woman. I am all of these other things. It just happens to be one of them, and it really is not something to be ashamed of. It is something to be celebrated and just accepted. So those inclusive words, are quite important.
And thank you for taking a moment to clarify that. As we do work in the diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging space, again, language is just so very important. And for those who want to show up as effective allies, sometimes they are hesitant or they can shy away if they're not comfortable with their language choice. But I will also make the point, too, that in any situation, in any interaction, and this is a build, Kelly, from what you said, people first, person first, and then also extend grace to the situation and yourself and simply ask, what language do you prefer? What terminology do you prefer? How would you like for me to address you? But I think what you just shared here at least gives us common ground, common foundation that we can start these conversations, because as you know, there are a number of organizations that have employee resource groups that focus on those who are disabled, or Kristen, as you mentioned, caregivers of those who are disabled. So I know this is a topic that's very important within corporations as well as within our community. Kelly, let me pivot back to you. Can you describe a little bit more of the work holistically that Easter Seals is undertaking and the services that they're providing? I know we're based here in Houston, but also from a national perspective as well.
Absolutely. And, you know, we're the 70, close to 70 affiliates across the United States and Canada and Mexico. Everybody's a little bit different. Some people may just focus on one age, one employment aspect, one high school aspect. But we at Easter Seals Greater Houston have always felt that we need to be there for the entire journey, for the entire family. I always give, you know, kind of a what if in somebody's shoes theoretical story is that, you know, if you take a couple who is both working, both have insurance, they have a child with a disability or a delay, baby's in the hospital for a long time, they leave the hospital, they are $1 million in debt now, somebody has to quit their job because of caregiving issues, loss of insurance, loss of income, and it really kind of spirals from there. So we want to make sure that all the barriers are removed so that the child with a disability, the parents can focus on getting them the therapy they need so they can walk or talk. And that includes all of our other programs, respite to give them a break, financial literacy and financial education to get them out of that hole, down payment assistance programs, housing programs, everything to keep them, and a lot of mental health, everything to keep them as a whole solidified unit, to get them up and strong as they can possibly be so they can focus on the real true needs that they need to deal with. And for that end, we have programs that range all the way from the babies with therapy through camps and high school, you know, transition through college or employment, everything we can to help them in every sector of their life.
So, Kristen, you want to speak specifically about technology tools, and thank you for the B and the reminder a few moments ago. I was going to say at the beginning, iPads have been around since 2010. So I guess I just didn't remember that they've been around for that long of a period of time. But for many now preteens, they've been alive and they've known iPads all of their life. So their relationship, their interaction with technology is very different than previous generations. So talk to us about bridging apps and maybe some of the other specific technology tools that Easter Seals helps to drive.
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, bridging apps, started then back in 2010. And it's what was so unique about the iPad. And now we have, we have iPads, we have other tablets, we have smartphones. Many people own smartphones and are using them. So many of us are familiar with using applications for everything from banking to texting to email to all sorts of things. When it comes to kind of this generation and growing up with technology, one thing that we found is Bridging Apps has a very robust website. And one of the very first things that we did that we found was quite important is because there are so many options and so many applications that come out all the time for certain things in the Apple App Store and in the Google Play Store and other stores, for all sorts of things, education, speech, communication, task, productivity and things like that. Even if young people are excited and fluent in using technology, many of their caregivers and extended family are not. And so as Kelly was talking about the whole family unit, that caregiver, all of us really are caregivers. We're the daughter, we're the aunt, we're the mom. We have all sorts of roles, and really in modern life, and especially since COVID, there are very few things that you can get done in daily life without using technology. Everything from applications to applying for benefits. How many times do you hear, well, just download our app and go on? So what we found is that supporting a family and helping them sort through which tools are helpful for them, both as for caregivers or for getting specific things done and helping their children or even adults with disabilities. So we manage at Bridging Apps a database. That database is on bridgingapps.org. It's called App Search, our App Search tool, and it houses about 2,700 different apps. I know that sounds like a lot, but when you compare it to about 1 million apps in the App Store, it helps people find solutions for things that they need. For example, caregiving. There are lots of apps that are free, that are platforms that can help with different aspects of caregiving. Help with communication. Somebody goes in the hospital and maybe they are temporarily, cannot use their voice. They're intubated, or they've had an injury and they can't speak. There are some wonderful communication tools, applications that you can put on a smartphone or tablet to help someone during that period of time. Kelly mentioned financial coaching and literacy. Lots of people who need that support are a little hesitant, or they just don't have the basic digital skills to be able to, access things that they need to do to get, in their daily lives. So we help with that. We do a lot of training, both virtually and in person. And everything that we do, including the work that we do within our assistive technology labs that we have that house some of these tools, some of these iPads and other tablets, as well as other technologies, we make those available. If you're in the Houston area, you can come in free of charge, and you can explore some of these technologies with someone who can show them to you to give you options for things. And then everything that we learn, we try to push out onto our website through our blog, through our YouTube channel. We create videos all the time for clients. And then we just share the information as widely as we can, all free of charge, to help people access and find what they need faster. So we look at Bridging Apps as a shortcut, but also just a ton of information where we try to sort through some things because caregivers are overwhelmed.
Yes, we are overwhelmed, but thanks to Easter Seals, we now have a tool that can hopefully make things a little bit more manageable. And I appreciate, Kristen, how you said the tool helps you navigate 2,700 apps. And my initial thinking was, it's still a lot. But when you dialed it down from the millions that are out there, I'm like, okay, that's that's definitely more manageable. So thank you so much for that. And as I know both of you are aware, October is Disability in Employment Awareness Month. And that month has been around since 1998 to really highlight the employment needs and also to the contributions of our disabled employees. And what's showing up for me as a question right now is, can you speak specifically to any maybe bridges to employment opportunities that Easter Seals provides to its clients? Are there any programs that are set up where employers partner with you to hire those that you serve?
Absolutely. We start in high school. We want to get these kids through high school. A lot of times they have not really been given the support or the tools they need, and they don't see a career path, even though they can absolutely 100% have an amazing career. And so we work real hard in high school to get them to see the different things that they could do, take them on field trips, have mentoring, all of which we would love our corporations to be involved in. We teach them, job skills training, resume building. We talk to them about social interactions, close talking or what have you. And this is whether the child has a physical disability or another type of disability, intellectual disability, epilepsy, seizure disorder. We're helping them also learn to manage that conversation. And so I think the dropout rate for kids in high school is close to 70%. Our dropout rate is 1%, so it's working. And then once they get to their senior year, we are talking about transition. What are you going to do? Do you want to go to college? Can you go to college? Should you go straight to employment? Should you go to trade school? What are we going to build on? And from there, we have our transition and our job coaches who are working with companies all the time to hire the people that are looking for jobs. And sometimes it's really, people get very concerned about, oh, a person with a disability is going to come work here, and how do we regulate that, and how do we make sure that they're comfortable, and oh, we have to rearrange the office. And it's really, really not difficult. And our education coach, our employment coaches are there to help them navigate it. But it really is simple tools. Maybe somebody on the spectrum who's going to be the best employee you could possibly have, maybe they don't just need to sit in a cubicle. Maybe they just, just small. A lot of us don't want to sit in a cubicle. It's hard with lots of background noise, and everybody understands that. Or, maybe somebody is in a wheelchair. It's really not a lot to give that person a little bit more access with their wheelchair. Very easy. But we really do work with a lot of corporations, the city, the county. I'm really trying to get people out there to get hired, because they really are as smart as you and I are. I mean, they should be working. They should be out there. And we've seen so much success from these kids. We have a young man who works for us, who was in the high school program, who is very definitely on the spectrum, and who would not communicate or look you in the eye when he first started doing his summer internships with us in the summer. And he finished high school, went into college, or to community college, and he's been working for us full time for almost 7 years. And if we didn't have the intellect that drives the HTML code that goes through his brain, we would be in a very, very big loss. He is brilliant. He now actually gives tours for the new employees. You're like, where did that kid go? I mean, it's truly amazing. And you're really going to gain a very loyal individual to be working for you.
Kelly, let me ask, well, first let me pause and say that is a tremendous story. And I know that story, though, has probably been duplicated so many times over. And it just speaks to the power of the work of your agency, which I think oftentimes goes unsung. And it always strikes me as odd every time I have a conversation about Easter seals. I have to give that explanation around what you all do. And I think people are still just learning about the agency, although you've been around for a long time and people know your name. I think this conversation is just the deeper dive that people need to really understand the service that you provide.
We do a lot. I always say we are small, but we are mighty. I mean, last year we served almost 15,000 families, and we have a staff of 200. So it really is truly amazing what we do. 91 cents of every dollar goes straight to programming. Kristen and I do not have assistants, and never will. Like, if that means one more person can be served, we're going to make sure that funding goes there. And I do, every time I close a speech, because we do so much. I mean, there's so much on the website. Sometimes it's kind of hard to muddle through. And what I always tell people at the end is, if you don't remember anything that I've said, like literally you don't remember anything, if you come across, your next door neighbor has a child who's premature, or your aunt gets diagnosed with Parkinson's, or you hear of somebody trying to help somebody get employed. If you just remember disability and Easter seals, we are going to help you. And if we cannot help you, we are going to find somebody who can.
That's great. And I think that's the reminder or the takeaway or the action that I want to make sure our listeners hear. Kelly, you talked about the employment opportunities, and you focused on the micro level, right? So supporting the employee. But if I recall, are there opportunities that Easter Seals fosters where actually employees are going to work for companies that do recycling and do other type of work like that?
We do.
Am I remembering that correctly?
We do. There is a company here that is I don't remember the specific term, that is federally regulated place where you can go to get your electronics recycled without worrying about your memory and stuff like that. There's a lot of companies that are very supportive in helping guide these children or these young people to be employed there. We still work with them, but it is not necessarily a partnership anymore. But there are a lot of different companies that I know our transition coaches and our employment coaches are working with. Amazon. I mean, there's some very large corporations out there who are really great about hiring because they know the quality of staff that they're going to get and the loyalty that they're going to get with it. And it's interesting because Kristen's program also, we've got this veterans and the military program, and there may just be a little bit of emotional, nervousness in the job. And Kristen's program really comes back to the centering of that. If there's a young man who has PTSD or even on the spectrum, who just needs a little self-regulation while they're at their office, Kristen's got, these really amazing apps that have been reviewed that are going to help just, a 5-minute break, like recenter, recharge. What am I doing? So there's just so many different levels that these people can get the support from, and the companies, it's growing. I remember when we first started the transition program and employment program, it was not a conversation. And, thank goodness for the DEI conversations. And I applaud the corporations that really push that narrative, because disability runs across all different sectors. We are the largest class under DEI. And to push that narrative, Dow Chemical and Twitter, and there's a lot of companies that are really pushing it because they see the validity of it. And I would hope that it continues to grow that way.
Kristen, talk to us more about employee development and some advice, some suggestions, some tools that we can share with employers that are looking to maximize their impact for their employees with disabilities, or the caregivers that are supporting those with disabilities.
Right. That's such a great question. And Kelly laid it out really, really nicely in talking about getting and reaching and starting in high schools. So because many youth with disabilities, even in their individual education plans, which most of them are supposed to have, often a transition or employment goal is not even included or part of the conversation. And so many parents and many families and caregivers don't bring it up because it's never been brought up to them. So the earlier we can get into those schools and working and planting that seed that, yes, your child can, be employed. We just have to do some work and find the right fit. And technology definitely can play a role. And it has to play a role for reasons I talked about earlier, is that really to get many things done today, you have to have digital skills. So one of our favorite things to do is working with the transition, and our another program called High School High Tech in the transition and employment is we have our services open to anybody who are in those programs. So for example, someone who might, as Kelly was talking about, maybe get an internship, a part-time internship through one of these companies. At the beginning, we try to, Bridging Apps staff tries to get with them to talk about, basic digital skills, like kind of doing a baseline assessment of how comfortable they feel. Do they own a smartphone? Have they worked on a computer before? And the skills are quite scattered. Some of them are quite savvy already, and some not so much. So some basic tools would be calendars. Has anyone sat down and, if maybe they don't like the calendar that's either on their laptop or on their phone, let's pick a calendar that you like and that you'll use, because one of the first things you need to do in an internship or a job is to get there on time, right? So it's basic skills. So some of it is not fancy or sexy. It's basic. It's reminders. Did you know how to do a location reminder? So when you leave the house, a little reminder pops up to say, did you bring your badge, your 3 things you need for work? Oh my gosh, it pops up if you start driving it away, and you can go back and get it. So some basic digital skills to be successful. And as Kelly said, I think when you think about DEI, and I think about the D in DEI as far as diversity, I hope that people I wish people would also think of disability there. So the D can be diversity, but also disability, because I believe that disability is an often forgotten group when you hear those DEI, and even B, the belonging part. So in thinking about that, there are just very small things that employers could do to make things easier. And one of those things is flexibility. Um, and many of us, I hope, learned that during COVID, that what many in the disability community have been asking for so long, many caregivers have, is flexibility. So that could be a different work schedule. So for someone with PTSD, maybe they can't do the 9 to 5, 8 to 6. Maybe it needs to be a little different. For some of our, again, back to our young people, with some of the most amazing changes or high impact tech tools would be just teaching them how to use both text to speech. So basically having things read aloud. Some of those tools are now free, where you can have things read. Maybe you're not the strongest reader and you're embarrassed about that. You can use headphones like I have, or earbuds that I have, and have things read aloud as far as instructions for learning your job. Or speech to text. Maybe you're a terrible writer. Maybe your brain works faster than your thumbs, and you can use your speech to have that turn into text on your phone. So some very simple things that are just minor adjustments, and being open to them as employers. Some of it is not expensive technology that can really make a big difference. And as Kelly said too, my experience with employment and people with disabilities is, once they feel that they're contributing and that they're included and accepted in a job, they're the most loyal employees. And in this time of low unemployment, where companies are looking, I would hope they would think about that D in diversity as being considering hiring someone with a disability, and that untapped potential that is sitting in front of them.
So much value in what you shared, Kristen. I'll touch on a few points. There is an acronym that some businesses and corporations use for DEIA,
Mm-hmm.
and A is either access or accessibility. So you see that in the DNA of organizations that have been very thoughtful and at the journey of this accessibility conversation for many years. So I just want to share that as another version for many organizations who have excelled or put a lot of intention around the space. I love your call out about like basic calendar tools. I mean, I think that's something that anyone could use. Some of us have calendars that aren't even like working and set up to really help us. They're just kind of there, right? You mentioned that. There was another point that you made. Oh, the readers. Mm-hmm. And, there are industries now, billion-dollar industries, that provide audible books. Mm-hmm. And that is just a way that now many people are consuming, the things that they're to be reading. And there should not be an obstacle or a blockage as we transition into employment that should keep someone from consuming large memos, documents, et cetera, to be read to them. And the technology, Kristen, is not very expensive to have all of that converted. But the last thing I'll mention for just this portion that just really struck my heart as you were talking is the need to get employers and the community engaged with those with disabilities in high school. Mm-hmm. And I'm even going to say in middle school. Mm-hmm. But if we're having this conversation when someone is trying to get employed and it's the first time we're having it, it's too late. Mm-hmm. Or it is late. It's never too late. So let me clarify that. To start is to start. But I just feel like the service is there and we've got to increase the knowledge and really get people the services that you all provide at a much earlier age. So by the time I'm employing someone who's been with Easter Seals, they've been with you for a number of years. Mm-hmm. Kelly, they're like the gentleman that you described. They have the confidence, they have the skill set, they can give the tours. And I'm just seeing this amazing contributor to my organization. And I just know that the investment from Easter Seals has been there over a period of time.
Absolutely. And you can see, the high school high tech program has mock interview days, which obviously is another way for the corporations to get involved. And they really end up having so much fun. I think the staff that comes over to volunteer their hours and work with the high school kids has more fun because they realize this one experience of them doing a round robin with 3 or 4 different interviews, it settles them. It's not as scary as you thought it was going to be. Let me give you a pointer, don't, whatever it is. And it really does make the employees themselves realize, this would be so easy to do. Like we need to foster this within our own company. I love that part.
So, Kelly, how can companies, corporations, organizations get involved with Easter Seals?
We have lots of different channels, but obviously we really depend highly on volunteers. And I think for a lot of corporations, that's the easiest entry level. A lot of the younger generations really appreciate when their corporations are giving back, and volunteering is one of those ways. And so we have been really successful with volunteer groups coming in. We may not have something that is we have our normally reoccurring volunteer opportunities, and we may not have something that fits your needs, but we're going to figure out a way to make that happen. Whether it's you're coming in, let's create a new mock interview day and just do it virtually from your company with the kids that are in this particular high school, or, taking our adult program to the zoo or on a field trip, just a little bit of entry level to get them familiar with what we do. And we really have built on that a lot. We obviously have a lot of corporations that sponsor and grant funds to us. We have a huge walk in April that I think really is pretty much the best day of the year. Kristen, I think will agree with me, because it is the one day of the year that we have. This last year we had 4,000 people at the zoo in April, and that's not only our caregivers and our families and our children with disabilities and our adults, but it is our employees that are hiring our kids. It's our donors. It's our corporations forming their teams. It's everybody out there and all of our volunteers. And it's such an amazing day to see all these people, running around having just the best time. And they're all there within Easter Seals. It really is just an amazing circle of a day. It's just the best. But there are a lot of different avenues, and we're eastersealshouston.org for a website. My email's on there. Kristen email's on there. Our general email is info@eastersealshouston.org, which, by the way, comes to me because I refuse to give up the
You want to see all those emails, Kelly. I get it.
I just feel like, very seriously, I know everybody gets very busy in their day, and I don't know how many times y'all have emailed a generic email, but I feel like if somebody has gone to the trouble of going to a website and looking to figure out what they need, and maybe they can't figure out that it's Kristen or me to talk to, but they're going to go to I feel like declaratively that person needs to get a response quickly. Whether it's a parent who's in a emotional issues right now, or somebody who just wants to learn, somebody from a corporation that just wants to learn, they need to get an email. So that is me, and it will always be me.
And thank you for that. It does make a difference. You're right. If I'm going to sit down and write an email, or even make a phone call nowadays, right? It's just, you want someone there that is responsive. So I appreciate that, Kelly. Kristen, I want to turn back to you now, as I'm just thinking about those of us who are listening, and would just like to understand how we can be more effective allies, either for those with disabilities or caregivers of those with special needs. Can you give us a few tactics of just ways that we could show up differently and show our support in different ways?
That's such a great question. Again, I will speak from my personal experience being the caregiver and the parent of someone with a disability. There are periods of time where it can feel quite lonely, which is why I'm so blessed and lucky to work at Easter Seals, because that doesn't happen as often as it used to happen, because I'm surrounded by people who get it. But I would say, as far as being an ally, being a support for someone, I think if Kelly gave a great example of, maybe a neighbor just had a premature baby, maybe somebody, a friend, or even an acquaintance you don't know quite very well, just got a diagnosis of a family member. I think one thing that you can do is just reach out and go a little bit deeper. Say, hey, how's it going? Oh, it's going, but not leave it at that. And just know that there are resources like Easter Seals that can help. I think from a technology perspective, I know this may sound odd, but what we've experienced at Bridging Apps, it's gone up and down over the years. And you probably know what I mean, is that often there's a backlash of technology. Technology can be very scary. So when you are reading that scary article about AI, totally valid. There are some scary things about that. Or, if someone comes out and the only article that you read is, no, you don't want to put screens in front of babies. No, that's not the greatest idea for a long period of time. But technology can play a role. And let's say you are someone and you've got some good digital skills. And you are trying, again, back to this person, this neighbor, this friend who feels so alone and maybe paralyzed by their emotions, and they can't act. They can't fill out that info email. They can't access or make phone calls to try to get some more information. Very, very simple things that, again, kind of small things to you, but makes high impact in somebody's life is one thing that I can say. And just the other thing, just also as a parent that I've experienced, and also just being with Bridging Apps for so long and seeing the questions that come into our help desk and seeing the things that are posted on social media about the automatic negativity of technology. Yes, it can be, just like anything, can be used in a not healthy way. And so, yes, we don't want people sitting in front of screens all the time. But especially for people with disabilities, young people with disabilities, young adults with disabilities, technology is their fluent language. And so instead of maybe denigrating or having a knee-jerk reaction to technology, turning that conversation around and saying, what are you looking at? Or what are you doing? Or, hey, I found this great story, sharing things and understanding, even as a young child. One thing that is a developmental milestone is shared attention, joint attention, is sitting with your child and looking at something, yes. Right? Reading a book. Maybe that book happens to be on an iPad because maybe that child can't physically turn the pages of a book, but we've set something up and they can use the book and turn the pages in a different way using the technology. So instead of jumping to conclusions, being a positive support in someone's development, I'll just kind of leave it at that because I could go on all day about that.
Well, perfect way to end our time together. Thank you for stretching our minds and our hearts. And thank you again for all the great work that Easter Seals does for our community. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you.
Kelly. Bye, Kristen.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.